reading room. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. It is day 347 in the classroom, and it is May 13th. We are going to go ahead and get started on reading the next reading in these core readings in humanity, and that is going to be an excerpt from Gattaca, which was written and directed, so it was a movie, but we'll hear the preface about this. One of the things I just want to say, it's going to be a little bit difficult to read, and the only reason why that would be is because it's a play. So I'm going to do my best to help us understand or have a little continuity in understanding this play that's written like a play. All right? So an excerpt from Gattaca, written and directed by Andrew M. Nichol. The movie Gattaca, the screenplay of which is excerpted below, explores the enduring significance of character in a society obsessed with genetically inherited traits. So exactly like what is going on now, right? We are obsessed with genetically inherited traits, as if scientists know what the hell they're talking about. Gattaca is set in the future. Our ability to shape the genetic inheritance of children before they are born has become so sophisticated that it is commonplace for parents to design children who are free of defects and whose attributes and abilities they choose. So back to our last reading. Wasn't it our last reading? Yes, where on DNA, where they were not accepting, it was called The Wonderful Mistake by Lewis Thomas, right? So, doing it exactly as humans would do, say giving God the big middle finger and saying, we're going to make it perfect since you didn't. Oh my goodness gracious. It is disturbing. It is so disturbing the way these scientists are playing God and then taking the credit as well. Gattaca is set in the future. Our ability to shape the genetic inheritance. We already said that. After birth, in this imagined world, it is possible to read an individual's complete genetic profile almost instantly from any sample of his DNA. Everyone's profile is registered, and one's DNA alone determines one's access to education, jobs, and even marriage partners. Those who were designed at birth, therefore, have the edge in every way over the dwindling ranks of naturals. Inevitably, ambitious individuals with poor DNA engage in identity fraud. They acquire DNA samples from donors who have the genetic endowments essential for success, but who lack the ability to use them. They contrive to pass off this DNA as their own, alter their appearances so they resemble their DNA donors, and then enter walks of life otherwise closed to them. The story concerns Vincent Antonio Luca, a natural with a natural defect, a weak heart. Despite this limitation, as Vincent grows, he develops a passion for astronomy and longs to become an astronaut. Knowing he will never be permitted to be one, he arranges to assume the identity of Jerome, a young man who has outstanding DNA but has been paralyzed in an accident and now suffers from alcoholism. As Gattaca begins, Vincent, living as Jerome, is on the verge of his first longed-for space flight. He soon becomes romantically involved with Irene, who also has a weak heart, but does not know that this is a characteristic they share. She does not know that Jerome is a false identity. The authorities begin to suspect Vincent of fraud, however, and he is soon pursued by an investigator. In the first excerpt, Jerome tells the story of his birth and upbringing as Vincent alongside his designed brother, Anton. The excerpt accumulates as the brothers compete in an ocean swim. In the second excerpt, Jerome and Irene have a conversation that exposes important differences between them. In the final excerpt, Jerome and the investigator, who is now revealed to be Vincent's brother, Anton, face off again in the open sea. Vincent does not correct his parents when they mistakenly believe Anton rescued him from near drowning. It's okay, he tells Anton. It's the way they want it. Does this reflect Vincent's own resignation or his parents' true desire? Both? Neither? What is the understanding of perfection that moves Vincent's parents to design their second child? In what ways, if any, is the designed child perfect? Throughout their lives, Vincent and Irene were told they were sick and incapable. Vincent seems never to have yielded to this, while Irene did. Why do they respond so differently to the same influence? Does the importance Vincent attaches to the value of risk ring true? Does his willingness to take risks make Vincent more or less perfect? Does the way we live with our particular capacities and attributes depend on how we acquired them? Who would be responsible for the actions or products of an altered human? The altered, the alterer, or the altered? Who might you consider more perfect? So there are words here, so that describe the scenes, right? So exterior, this is excerpt number 1. We're reading 3 excerpts, it says. Exterior is the beach at dusk, 30 odd years earlier. This screenplay uses the following standard abbreviations. All right. You don't need to know that. All right. So Jerome, in a voiceover, says, I was conceived in the Riviera, not the French Riviera. The camera tilts down further to find a Buick Riviera parked in a deserted beachfront parking lot on a polluted stretch of beach. So conceived in a Riviera. Jerome, voiceover. This is Jerome. Now remember, Jerome is Vincent, right? Now he's living as Jerome. Jerome, voiceover. The Detroit variety. So I was conceived in a Riviera, not a French Riviera, a Buick Riviera. The Detroit variety. Through the car's steamed windows, we see Jerome's mother and father, Maria and Antonio, early 20s, making love. Jerome in a voiceover. They used to say that a child conceived in love has a greater chance of happiness. They don't say that anymore. The interior, family planning clinic, day. Maria is wearing a medical gown, lies on an examining table, feet in stirrups. A nurse, 40s, wheels an instrument tray towards her. Maria suddenly disengages her feet from the stirrups and swings her legs off the table. The nurse asks, what are you doing? Maria is shaking her head. I can't do this. Nurse, misinterpreting the problem. I told you the government pays. It's all taken care of. No, you don't understand. I can't. The nurse places a comforting hand on Maria's shoulder. The doctor will give you something. Removing the hand, adamant. I'm not doing it. Trying to make her see reason. Honey, you've made one mistake. The remark stings Maria. The nurse softens her tone. I've read your profile. I don't know about your father, but you carry enough hereditary factors on your own. You can have other children. Holding her swollen stomach protectively, not like this one. Honey, look around you. The world doesn't want one like that one. Maria gets off the table and reaches for her clothes laying across a chair. You don't know what it will be. The nurse watches Maria as she dresses, genuinely bewildered, calling out to Maria as she disappears out of the door. The child won't thank you. Interior delivery room. We focus on a crucifix dangling on a rosary. Tilting up, we find the rosary clasped between Maria and Antonio's intertwined hands. Jerome in the voiceover. Those were early days, days when a priest could still persuade someone to put their faith in God's hands rather than those of the local geneticist. Bathed in sweat, Maria gives a final push on the delivery table. While still attached to his umbilical cord, the heel of the newborn baby is immediately pricked by a masked nurse. A minute drop A minute drop of blood is inserted into an analyzing machine. Even as the baby is put into Maria's arms, page after page of data begins to appear on a monitor, pulsing warning signals throughout the spreadsheets. Two assisting nurses exchange a look. Antonio senses something amiss. What's wrong? Jerome in a voiceover. Of course, there was nothing wrong with me. Not so long ago, I would have been considered a perfectly healthy, normal baby. 10 fingers, 10 toes. That was all that used to matter. But now my immediate well-being was not the sole concern. Antonio turns his attention from his baby to the data appearing on the monitor. We see individual items highlighted amongst the data. Nerve condition, probability 60%, manic depressive 42%, obesity 66%, attention deficit disorder 89%. What a bunch of fuckers. What a bunch of fuckers. Jerome in a voiceover. My destiny was mapped out before me, all my flaws, predispositions, and susceptibilities, most untreatable to this day. Only minutes old, the date and cause of my death was already known. Antonio faces on a final highlighted item on the monitor screen. Heart disorder, 99%. Early fatal potential, life expectancy, 33 years. The name? Typing details into the birth certificate. For the certificate, Maria says Antonio. Antonio correcting her. No, Vincent Antonio. With the computer stylus, he signs the nurse's handheld screen. Exterior, tract home, backyard, day. 2-year-old Jerome, referred to by his given name of Vincent for most of the following flashback. Running with a toy rocket falls more in clumsiness than fatigue. Maria suddenly whisks up the toddler. Maria is hysterical. Oh, Vincent, 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 I can't let you out of my sight. Maria frantically listens to her young son's heartbeat. For his part, Vincent appears surprised by the attention. Maria places a portable oxygen mask over Vincent's mouth. Jerome in the voiceover. I was born Vincent Antonio Luca, and from an early age I came to think of myself as others thought of me, chronically ill. Every skinned knee and runny nose treated as if it were life-threatening. Interior, daycare center during the day. Maria and Antonio drop off dark-haired 2-year-old Vincent at a daycare center. Jerome in a voiceover. And my parents soon realized that wherever I went, my genetic prophecy preceded me. While healthy children play outside on tricycles, clamor over jungle gyms, and finger paint, the preschool teacher shows Vincent into a room where children with obvious disabilities sleep on mats. Maria, wheeled around, and marches out of the center with Vincent in her arms. Antonio follows close behind, pleading with his wife to see sense. Jerome in the voiceover. They put off having any more children until they could afford not to gamble, to bring a child into the world in what has become the natural way. Exterior home day. Antonio reluctantly shows off his spotless Buick Riviera to a prospective buyer. Jerome, in a voiceover, it meant selling the beloved Buick. The two men haggle over the price while Maria, holding Vincent in her arms, looks on. Finally, money and a pink slip are exchanged. Vincent, in a voiceover. My father got a good price. After all, the only accident he'd ever had in that car was me. As the buyer drives away, Antonio shrugs to Maria to hide his disappointment. The exterior, genetic counseling office building during the day. Antonio, Maria, and 2-year-old Vincent exit a packed commuter bus and enter a genetic counseling office building bearing the sign Procreation. The interior of the genetic counseling office now during the day. A geneticist stares into a high-powered microscope as Antonio, Maria, and a 2-year-old Vincent are shown into the office by a nurse. On the counter beside the geneticist is a glass-doored industrial refrigerator containing petri dishes arranged on racks several feet high. The geneticist, to the nurse, without taking his eyes from his binocular microscope, put up the dish. While Antonio and Maria take a seat in front of the television monitor, the nurse puts a labeled petri dish under a video-equipped microscope. The geneticist swings around in his chair to greet his clients. 4 magnified clusters of cells, 8 cells on each cluster, appear on the television screen. The geneticist: your extracted eggs, noting the couple's names from data along the edge of the screen. Maria have been fertilized with Antonio's sperm, and we have performed an analysis of the resulting pre-embryos. After screening, we're left with 2 healthy boys and 2 healthy girls. Naturally, no critical predispositions to any of the major inheritable diseases. All that remains is to select the most compatible candidate. Maria and Antonio exchange a nervous smile. The geneticist: first, we may as well decide on gender. Have you given it any thought? Maria, referring to the toddler on her knee: we would like Vincent to have a brother, to play with. The geneticist nods. He scans the data around the edge of the screen. You've already specified blue eyes, dark hair, and fair skin. I have taken the liberty of eradicating any potentially prejudicial conditions: premature baldness, myopia, alcoholism, and addictive susceptibility, propensity for violence, and obesity. Interrupting anxious: we didn't want diseases, yes. Antonio, more diplomatic: we were wondering if we should leave some things to chance. The geneticist, reassuringly: you want to give your child the best possible start. Believe me, we have enough imperfection built in already. Your child doesn't need any additional burdens. And keep in mind, this child is still you, simply the best of you. You could conceive naturally 1,000 times and never get such a result. Antonio, squeezing Maria's hand: he's right, Maria, that's right. Maria is only half convinced, but the geneticist swiftly moves on. Is there any reason you'd want a left-handed child? Antonio: no. Some believe it is associated with creativity, although there's no evidence. Also, for sports like baseball, it can be an advantage. Antonio shrugs. I like football. Injecting a note of levity, the geneticist says: I have to warn you, Mr. Luca, he's going to be at least a head taller than you. Prepare for a crick in the neck in 16 years' time. The geneticist, scanning the data on the screen: anything I've forgotten? Maria, hesitant about broaching the subject: we were hoping he would get married and have children. We'd like grandchildren. I understand it's already been taken care of. Now you, an afterthought here, now you appreciate I can only work with the raw material I have at my disposal, but for a little extra, I could also attempt to insert sequences associated with enhanced mathematical or musical ability. Maria, suddenly enthused: Antonio, the choir. Geneticist, interjecting, covering himself: I have to caution you, it's not foolproof. With multi-gene traits, there can be no guarantees. How much extra? Antonio asks. It would be 5,000 more. Antonio's face falls. I'm sorry, there's no way we can. The geneticist: don't worry, you'll probably do just as well singing to him in the womb. Rising to the end of the appointment: we can implant the most successful pre-embryo tomorrow afternoon. Maria is staring at the 4 magnified clumps on the screen. What will happen to the others? They are not babies, Maria, merely human possibilities. Removing the petri dish from beneath the lens of the microscope, he points out the 4 minuscule specks. The geneticist says: smaller than a grain of sand. Now they dissolve to the interior, tracked home during the day. A red pencil draws a mark on the doorway at the height of a child's head. The child moves away, and the name Anton, 11, is written beside the mark by proud father Antonio. Jerome in a voiceover. That's how my brother Anton came into the world, a son my father considered worthy of his name. There is little physical similarity between 11-year-old Anton and 13-year-old Vincent standing beside him apart from their height. In fact, Vincent is mortified to see that his younger brother's mark is a fraction of an inch higher than the mark beside his own name, Vincent 13. Vincent runs from the room. The exterior, beach. During the day, 13-year-old Vincent and 11-year-old Anton sit together on a windswept beach. Anton picks up a broken shell and deliberately slices the tip of his thumb with the sharp edge. He hands the shell to Vincent, who hesitantly follows suit. Jerome in a voiceover. By the time we were playing at Blood Brothers, I understood that there was something very different flowing through my veins. The two brothers pressed their thumbs together, merging the blood. Jerome in a voiceover, and I'd need an awful lot more than a drop if I was going to get anywhere. The exterior of the beach later in the day. While Antonio and Maria doze under a beach umbrella, Anton and Vincent enter the water, diving through the waves. From above, we watch the two young bodies swimming beside each other beyond the breakers. Jerome in a voiceover. Our favorite game was chicken. When our parents weren't watching, we used to swim outside the flags as far as we dared. It was about who would get scared and turn back first. Suddenly, Vincent stopped swimming, pulling up sharply in the water, exhausted and fearful. He watches Anton swim on into the distance. Of course, Jerome voiceover, of course it was always me. Anton was by far the stronger swimmer, and he had no excuse to fail. Interior school classroom during the day. A teacher gives a physics lesson. The bespectacled 13-year-old Vincent has his arm energetically raised at each opportunity, but it's never called upon. Eventually, he lowers his arm in defeat. Jerome in the voiceover. My genetic scarlet letter continued to follow me from school to school. When you're told you're prone to learning disabilities, it's sometimes easier not to disappoint anybody. The exterior street at night. 13-year-old Vincent stands at a cul-de-sac at the end of a long, straight, deserted street. He places a basketball in the middle of the street to represent the sun and begins to unwind the huge reel of string attached to the ball. 11-year-old Anton walks a pace behind him. Several yards along the trail, a bead is threaded through the string to represent the planet Mercury. Anton, how many astronauts are there anyway? Vincent ignores him and continues to reel out the string. I bet I could be one. Vincent stops and regards his younger brother with contempt. You're standing on Venus. Anton lifts his foot. There is a bead beneath it. Exterior beach day. 17-year-old Jerome walks up the beach to find 15-year-old Anton sitting with a young woman Vincent had previously dated. Jerome in a voiceover. I didn't blame Anton for his free ride. You can't blame someone for winning the lottery. The young woman hastily departs. Later, the two brothers face each other on the sand. Anton is the more statuesque of the two. Anton saying cocky, "You sure you want to do this?" Vincent's answer is to walk towards the water. Anton smiles mockingly at his brother's grim game face and follows. From an aerial view, we watch Vincent and his younger brother Anton swim beyond the breakers. Jerome in a voiceover. It was the last time we swam together. Out into the open sea, like always, knowing each stroke towards the horizon was one we had to make back to the shore. Like always, the unspoken contest. We watch the two young men swim stroke for stroke. They swim far out beyond the point. Suddenly, Anton starts to slow. His strokes become labored until he becomes motionless in the water. He begins to sink like a stone. Vincent, realizing Anton is no longer beside him, turns back to lend support. Vincent takes him in a lifeguard hold and begins to nurse him back to shore. Finally, the two boys are coughed up onto the shallows. They collapse just beyond the waterline, exhausted, gasping for air. Antonio and Maria arrive on the scene. Anton is the first to recover while Vincent clutches his side, his face screwed up in pain. Maria kneels down and starts to administer to Vincent, but his father Antonio is unable to conceal his anger and contempt for Vincent. Vincent, you damn fool, you could have killed Anton with your ridiculous concept. Why should he risk his life to save yours? When are you going to get it through your thick head? You can't compete with your brother. Why try? Maria takes Antonio aside. Anton and Vincent exchange a look. Anton, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you? Staring back at his father knowingly. It's okay. It's the way they want it. Jerome's voiceover. It confirmed everything in the minds of my parents, that they had taken the right course with my younger brother and the wrong course with me. It would have been so much easier for everyone if I had slipped away that day. I decided to grant them that wish. Interior home at night. Anton stands at the mantelpiece in the dimly lit living room. He gazes at a framed family portrait. Vincent's face has been torn out of it. He suddenly spies Vincent exiting the front gate, carrying a suitcase. Anton goes to shout Vincent's name, but the words don't get out. Excerpt number 2, years past. Interior, Irene's apartment later that morning. Back in the bedroom, Jerome, partially dressed, holds Irene in bed. She softly touches the scars on his shins. Irene referring to the shins. What happened? You remember the 99 Chrysler LeBaron? It's the exact height of the front fender. Shrugs. Looked right instead of left. Irene, comforted by the thought, so you're not so smart after all. Awkward about raising the subject. I want you to know, if it ever came to it, I'd be willing to get an ovum from the egg bank. In fact, I'd rather use a donor egg, quickly covering herself again, if it came to it. Jerome, but if it came to it, then it couldn't have your searching for an appropriate body part nose, stroking her face. How perfect does your child have to be? Irene, mildly irritated by what she perceives as his mocking. You hypocrite, do you think for one moment you'd be doing what you're doing if it wasn't for who you are, what you are? Don't you get any satisfaction knowing that your children will be able to live to a ripe old age unless they do something foolish? That's precisely what scares me, that they won't do anything foolish or courageous or anything worth a goddamn, said Jerome. Irene is taken aback by Jerome's passion regarding him in a new light. Excerpt number 3, exterior beach night. Jerome and Anton walk down a dune together towards the beach not far from Gattaca, an ocean beach pounded by an angry black sea. Jerome picks up a sharp piece of shell and slices the end of his thumb. A drop of blood oozes out. He offers the shell to Anton, but Anton does not take it. Both men begin to disrobe. The brothers stand beside each other on the stand once again. Anton still the more athletically built of the two. Together they enter the raging surf. Diving through the break waves, they begin to swim. In the moonlit night, we watch their two bodies swimming side by side. They swim a long distance, Anton waiting for his brother to tire, but the pace does not slacken. Anton pulls up in the water, sensing his brother is no longer beside him. Jerome also pulls up. They tread water several yards apart, attempting to conceal his distress. Anton. How are you doing with this, Vincent? Have you done any of this? Jerome. Now is your chance to find out. Jerome swims away a second time. Anton is forced to follow once again, angry now, gritting his teeth. Anton calls upon the same determination we have witnessed during his constant swimming in the pool. Anton has worked out compulsively in a swimming pool since his defeat by Vincent years ago. He puts on a spurt, slowly reeling in Jerome. Anton gradually draws alongside Jerome, certain that this effort will demoralize his older brother. But Jerome has been foxing, waiting for him to catch up. Jerome smiles at Anton. With almost a trace of sympathy, he forges ahead again. Anton is forced to go with him. They swim again for a long distance. Is it Anton who gradually becomes demoralized? It is Anton who gradually becomes demoralized. His strokes weaken. His will draining away. Anton pulls up, exhausted and fearful. Jerome also pulls up. However, his face displays none of Anton's anxiety. They tread water several yards apart. The ocean is choppier now. The view of the lights on the shore is obscured by the peaks of the waves. Anton is now panicking. Vincent, where's the shore? We're too far out. We have to go back. Jerome says, too late for that. We're closer to the other side. What's the other side? How far do you want to go? Do you want to drown us both? And Anton becomes hysterical. How are we going to get back? Jerome merely smiles back at his younger brother, a disturbingly serene smile, eerily calm. You wanted to know how I did it? That's how I did it, Anton. I never saved anything for the swim back. Anton stares at Jerome aghast. The two men face each other in silence, treading water several yards apart in the dark rolling ocean. Jerome turns and heads back towards the shore. Anton is left alone with a terrifying realization. The only sound, the wind and the water. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. I really don't like these stories. They are not filled with humanity, are they? I just don't like these stories. Where are we? We're at 32 minutes. Let's read C.S. Lewis is the next one, which is called That Hideous Strength. It's only a few pages, so we'll read. These are excerpts from That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis. That Hideous Strength is the third volume of the science fiction trilogy by C.S. Lewis. Set in a futuristic England, it explores what happens when the technology project to master human nature reaches its logical limit. One of the novel's central characters, Mark Studdock, a young sociologist who is more or less coerced into working for a secretive government institute, the National Institute for Coordinated Experiments, or NICE. For his first few weeks at NICE, Studdock is in the dark about its real work and purpose. In the following excerpt, he and several others equally ignorant are at last enlightened in an after-dinner conversation with a knowledgeable Italian insider named Philostrato. Philostrato describes his ambition to shave the earth of all organic life, including human bodies, because the impure and the organic are interchangeable conceptions. The body will no longer be necessary. It will be transcended by pure mind. All will be done for the sake of cleanliness and civilization, which Philostrato describes as peace and order and discipline. Is Philostrato right that the real filth is what comes from organisms? Is Philostrato's movement from the artificial tree to artificial bird song and finally to eradication of the human body the unbroken continuum that he implies it is? Are Philostrato's assumptions valid? Is human perfection tantamount to purity? Is the conquest of death tantamount to the conquest of organic life? Is bodiless mind the peak of human flourishing? Are Philostrato's motives noble, base, or neither? At dinner, he sat next to Philostrato. There were no other members of the inner circle within earshot. The Italian was in good spirits and talkative. He had just given orders for the cutting down of some fine beech trees in the grounds. Why have you done that, Professor? Said Mr. Winter, who sat opposite. I shouldn't have thought they did much harm at that distance from the house. I'm rather fond of trees myself. Oh, yes, yes, replied Philostrato. The pretty trees, the garden trees, but not the savages. I put the rose in my garden, but not the briar. The forest tree is a weed. But I tell you, I have seen the civilized tree in Persia. It was a French attaché who had it because he was in a place where trees do not grow. It was made of metal, a poor crude thing, but how if it were perfected? Light made of aluminum, so natural it would even deceive. It would hardly be the same as a real tree, said Winter, but consider the advantages. You get tired of him in one place, 2 workmen carry him somewhere else, wherever you please. It never dies, no leaves to fall, no twigs, no birds building nests, no muck and mess. I suppose 1 or 2 as curiosities might be rather amusing. Why 1 or 2? At present, I allow we must have forests for the atmosphere. Presently, we find a chemical substitute. And then, why any natural trees? I foresee nothing but the art tree all over the earth. In fact, we clean the planet. Do you mean put in a man called Gould? That we are to have no vegetation at all? Exactly. You shave your face, even the Englishman fashion, you shave him every day. One day we shave the planet. I wonder what the birds will make of it. I would not have any birds either. On the art tree, I would have the art birds all singing when you press a switch inside the house. When you are tired of the singing, you switch them off. Consider again the improvement. The feathers dropped about, no nest, no eggs, no dirt. It sounds, said Mark, like abolishing pretty well all organic life. And why not? It is simple hygiene. Listen, my friends, if you pick up some rotten thing and find this organic life crawling all over it, do you not say, oh, the horrid thing, it is alive, and then drop it? Go on, said Winter. And you, especially you English, are you not hostile to any organic life except your own on your own body? Rather than permit it, you have invented the daily bath. That's true. And what do you call dirty dirt? It is not precisely the Is it not precisely the organic? Minerals are clean dirt. But the real filth is what comes from organisms, sweat, spittles, excretions. Is not your whole idea of purity one huge example? The impure and the organic, the interchangeable conceptions. What are you driving at, Professor? Said Gould. After all, we are organisms ourselves. I granted that is the point. In us, organic life has produced mind. It has done its work. After that, we want no more of it. We do not want the world any longer furred over the organic life, like what you call the blue mold, all sprouting and budding and breeding and decaying. We must get rid of it by little and little, of course. Slowly we learn how. Learn to make our brains live with less and less body. Learn to build our bodies directly with chemicals. No longer have to stuff them full of dead brutes and weeds. Learn how to reproduce ourselves without copulation. I don't think that would be much fun, said Winter. My friend, you have already separated the fun, as you call it, from fertility. The fun itself begins to pass away. Bah! I know that is not what you think, but look at your English women. 6 out of 10 are frigid, are they not? You see? Nature herself begins to throw away the anachronism. When she has thrown it away, the real civilization becomes possible. You would understand if you were peasants. Who would try to work with stallions and bulls? No, we want geldings and oxen. There will never be peace and order and discipline so long as there is sex. When man has thrown it away, then he will become finally governable. Well, that sure is a promotion for the sex industry, isn't it? The world I look forward to is the world of perfect purity. This is so disturbing. The clean mind and the clean minerals. What are the things that most offend the dignity of man? Birth and breeding and death. That is so extraordinary as well. This is so disturbing. Birth? No, that did not disturb my dignity. Breeding, having sex, making love to have a child? No, that did not bother my dignity. What bothers my dignity is the fact that there are so many human beings that don't respect women or what women say. What bothers my dignity? That's a perverse look. No. Having children? No. Having sex? Not the way I have it. Doesn't bother me one single bit. How if we are about to discover that man can live without any of the three? How if we are about to discover that man can live without any of the three? Philostrato turned sharply from him and with a great scraping movement flung back the window curtains. Then he switched off the light. The fog had all gone. The wind had risen. Small clouds were scudding across the stars and the full moon. Mark had never seen her so bright, stared down upon them. As the clouds passed her, she looked like a ball that was rolling through them. Her bloodless light filled the room. There is a world for you, no, said Philostrato. There is cleanness, purity, thousands of square miles of polished rock, with not one blade of grass, not one fiber of lichen, not one grain of dust, not even air. Have you thought what it would be like, my friend, if you could walk on that land? No crumbling, no erosion. The peaks of those mountains are real peaks, sharp as needles. They would go through your hand, cliffs as high as Everest and as straight as the wall of a house, and cast by those cliffs acres of shadow, black as ebony, and in the shadow hundreds of degrees of frost, and then one step beyond the shadow, light that would pierce your eyeballs like steel and rock that would burn your feet. The temperature is at boiling point. You would die, no, but even then you would not become filth. In a few moments you are a little heap of ash, clean white powder. And mark, no wind to blow that powder about. Every grain in the little heap would remain in its place just where you died till the end of the world. But that is nonsense. The universe will have no end. Yes, a dead world, said Mark, gazing at the moon. No, said Philostrato. He had come close to Mark and spoke almost in a whisper, the bat-like whisper of a voice that is naturally high-pitched. No, there is life there. Do we know that? Asked Mark. Oh, see, intelligent life under the surface, a great race further advanced than we, an inspiration, a pure race. They have cleaned their world, broken free almost from the organic. But how? They do not need to be born and bred and die. Only their common people, their canaglia, do that. The masters live on. They retain their intelligence. They can keep it artificially alive after the organic body has been dispensed with, a miracle of applied biochemistry. They do not need organic food, you understand? They are almost free of nature, attached to her only by the thinnest, finest cord. Do you mean that all that, Mark pointed to the mottled globe of the moon, is their own doing? Why not? If you remove all the vegetation presently, you have not atmosphere, no water. But what was the purpose? Hygiene. Why should they have their world all crawling with organisms? And specifically, they would banish one organism. Her surface is not all as you see. There are still surface dwellers, savages, one great dirty patch On the far side of her, where there is still water and air and forests, yes, and germs and death. They are slowly spreading their hygiene over their whole globe, disinfecting her. The savages fight against them. There are frontiers and fierce wars in the caves and galleries down below. But the great race presses on. If you could see the other side, you would see year by year the clean rock, like this side of the moon, encroaching the organic stain, all the green and blue and mist growing smaller, like cleaning tarnished silver. But how do we know all this? I will tell you all that another time. The head has many sources of information. For the moment, I speak only to inspire you. I speak that you may know what can be done, what shall be done here. The Institute, Dio Mayo, is for something better than housing and vaccinations and faster trains and curing the people of cancer. It is for the conquest of death, or for the conquest of organic life, if you prefer. Who would want that kind of life? Yeah, do away with me. Forget about it. Letting my brain live on without a body, all that I would wish for was to be able to do the things I could think. They are the same thing. It is to bring out that cocoon of organic life which sheltered the babyhood of the mind of the new man, the man who will not die, the artificial man from nature, free from nature. Nature is the ladder we have climbed up by now. Now we kick her away. And you think that someday we shall really find a means of keeping the brain alive indefinitely? We have begun already, the head himself. Go on, said Mark. His heart was beating wildly, and he had forgotten both Jane and Wither. This at last was the real thing. The head himself has already survived death. The head himself has already survived death, and you shall speak to him this night. Yeah, definitely like you better as a Christian. C.S. Lewis. I don't know. Very disturbing. You know, the only thing disturbing really about humanity would be their railroading people into this kind of thinking. I don't know who would prefer an art tree over a tree, right? I mean, we can see what it's done to the planet. It has really reduced the artistry. I don't even know why anyone would want to usurp God's plan in that way. I don't even like this book of Humanities. But you know what? We're going to keep reading it. This is the chapter and section on perfection. So, I don't know. The movement for that, it's definitely enlightening, but boy, is it disturbing. Thanks so much for joining me. We are in the reading room where we are reading Being Human, core readings in Humanities. I think I quit my Humanities class. I'm almost positive I took the class with this book and just was like, yeah, that's enough bullshit for my mind. I mean, that's enough destruction for my mind. That's for sure. I don't need to go there. It is May 13th. It is day 347. Thanks so much for joining me here in the classroom. I'll be back tomorrow for our 3 days on. Well, we keep concerning ourselves with a healthy mind, a healthy body, and a healthy spirit. Thanks so much for joining me here in the classroom. I'm Dr. Annette Feravich.